guys, so we are in a current review week. This week is just full of different reviews for different horror movies being released. We have Crimes of the Future on Monday, we got Dashcam today, and we have Watcher on Friday. There's just so many being released, I'm trying to review them all. So obviously today we're talking about Dashcam, which is the newest movie from creator Rob Savage, who brought us none other than the scariest movie of all time, proven by science, Host. Host, of course, is one of the first pandemic movies that we got. It was shot entirely on Zoom, and while I absolutely love that movie, I think it's very effective, very scary. I don't think it's the scariest movie of all time. But then again, I didn't really agree that Sinister was either, and Host took Sinister's place. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Dashcam, which is, in fact, another found footage pandemic movie. Now, Dashcam is very different from Host in the sense that it is very controversial. It is a very interesting movie, and I think I know for a fact, a lot of people hate this movie. A lot of people are very annoyed by this movie, but then there are going to be those that absolutely love this movie. So we really have a wide spectrum here of whether you're gonna love it or hate it, and so it's gonna be very hard for me to, well, we'll get into my thoughts in a second. So Dashcam follows an indulgent and, dare I say, edgy live streamer who does improv music from her car. She leaves LA for London, steals her friend's car, and makes the wrong choice when she decides to give a ride to an elderly woman who is not what she seems. Now, the first thing I have to talk about in this video is, of course, the main character, Annie Hardy. Now, she is the reason why this movie is so controversial, and also the sole reason why so many people will absolutely hate this movie. So she's incredibly annoying, MAGA hat, anti-liberal, anti-vax, anti-mask, anti-lockdown. We all know this type of people that we saw on the internet around the pandemic, still going to. We know exactly the type of person that she is supposed to represent. Now, of course, she is taken to the extreme. I feel like this character is definitely pushing the boundaries. Not that these extreme kind of internet troll, edgy type people don't exist, but she is very much extreme to the point where it's kind of campy in a way because it's just over the top at times. Now, but the real controversy comes in not even with the character being like that, it's the fact, and this is why I think a lot of people are actually disappointed in Rob Savage and also Blumhouse, who is the production company behind Dashcam, is the fact that Annie Hardy actually is playing a version of herself. That is her real name. She is in fact a musician. She does actually kind of believe very similar beliefs to what she represents in the movie. However, I still think the movie is turned up to an 11. I scrolled through some of her social media. I don't think she's as extreme as the character in Dashcam. People like to think that I think she's the exact same person. I don't think so. Maybe this was just like an extreme portrayal of her actual beliefs. I'm not sure. I obviously I don't know her. I'm not familiar with her. Just looking through her social media though, you can tell that it is very similar to the beliefs that her character has in the movie. Now, I wasn't super upset with the character herself when I was watching the movie, but when I found out after the fact that she is actually playing herself and she does indeed kind of have these beliefs in real life, that's what kind of made me more disappointed in it and kind of took away from the movie a little bit, because it wasn't, you know, I get the point of the character being this extreme portrayal of this person, and I didn't hate it. Obviously, she's a very annoying character, but I think that's intentional, and it did take away from the movie a little bit, but I really don't want to let it ruin the movie experience for me, because I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think in a way the main character kind of added a weird dynamic to the movie that I've never really seen before. And she is intentionally annoying. Like, she is supposed to annoy the viewer. We're not supposed to necessarily be rooting for her. She's not a protagonist. She is just this weird internet streamer that has very extreme, you know, beliefs. And it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be intentionally annoying. And she looks bad in the movie. Like, I don't think anyone's watching this really rooting for her. Maybe people who are as extreme as her in real life, but no one's really watching this movie being like, yeah, Annie's so cool. Like, no, she looks terrible in it. Like, she looks bad. And I think it's an interesting take, and I kind of get it. I get where Rob Savage was coming from, because this is another pandemic movie, and this is a very extreme person that came out of the woodworks during the pandemic. So I get what he was going for. We have Host being kind of the more tame found footage type movie with very strong horror elements, kind of a more slower build up to, you know, a very very horrific end, if you will. And then we have Dashcam, which is just like a wild ride, like a roller coaster, but it's still representing a part of the pandemic that I've never seen represented before in like media or entertainment. And I get it. I think it's fitting, and I think it did add a more entertaining factor to the movie for me. Now, that's just my opinion. It's not going to be the same for everyone. There are so many people who hate this movie, hate the character, think it doesn't have any redeeming qualities, which I don't agree with. And I wish it was more fictional. You know, I wish this character was a fictional character more so than it actually is. So yeah, it does take away from the movie a little bit. But for me personally, I still love this movie. And again, I struggle recommending it because a lot of people are not going to like it because of the main character, which is unfortunate because I think there's a lot going for this movie. So speaking of that, let's actually get into the main juice of the review and everything I liked about the movie, because we've covered the controversial main character. I've given you a full warning of what she is like, and just so you are prepared going in if you haven't seen it yet, but just be prepared. She's annoying. No one likes her. She is obnoxious, especially because she's portraying an American, you know, traveling abroad in London, and it's annoying. But you get it by now. Let's get into the actual, like, meat of the review. So for one, I never knew for 1 second where this movie was going to go. I never knew what was going to happen. I knew nothing going into it, really, except that it was a girl live streaming. That's all I knew of it. I never saw any trailers for this movie, so it completely took me off guard multiple times. Now, this does have classic found footage aspects going for it, so shaky camera, weird angles, which to me is very effective in just building the tension of the movie. I feel like found footage, just for me, is a very effective subgenre of horror, so obviously if you're not into that or that's not your favorite, then this might not be for you. But this movie had everything I love in a horror movie. It was phenomenal. The jump scares were amazing, which is very rare for me to say that. And the horror elements in this one is really what saved this movie. Like, Annie Hardy aside, like, character, putting her aside, the horror in this is just perfection. To me, it was 10 out of 10. I loved every single element of horror in this movie. It's also everything that I could ask for from a found footage movie, because it kept it so interesting. We changed location like at least 5 times, which I really, really loved. It kept it really interesting, and each location got better and better and kept me more and more excited as we went along. Like, every location was just amazing. You got some Blair Witch with some woodsy stuff. I'm not gonna say all the locations, but all the locations were spot on. Now, this movie is 68 minutes long. Very, very short, basically an hour. I think Rob Savage does this very well, because Host was also only an hour long, but he will pack as much content and action and horror into that hour as he can. And it honestly could be longer movies. I think both of them could be full length, or at least an hour 20 maybe, but the fact that he keeps it to an hour, they're very consumable, digestible horror movies. They're just so easy. This one actually is really good too if you struggle with attention span during horror movies, or just movies in general when you're watching at home, because I personally do. I love to go on my phone during a movie, and that's horrible, but it's the reality of technology these days. This one is great because you have so many things to look at. You have the live streaming comments you can read on the side of the screen, and of course there's so much going on during the entire movie that you are never bored. Maybe the first like 10-15 minutes of the buildup is the most annoying that she is. You know, she goes on an airplane being anti-mask. It's just bad. So expect that. But after we get through that, and when she's actually in London and picks up the old woman, then it just like picks up, and it is so good. So obviously I really love this movie. I highly, highly recommend it for the right people. If you're willing to be open-minded a little bit about the main character, you're going to hate her. Like, it's just a given. Not everyone, I guess. There's going to be people who like her. I don't know. But just because I love it doesn't mean it doesn't have its downfalls. I think, you know, he's not perfect. Rob Savage isn't perfect. He doesn't make perfect movies by any means. Obviously, I hate the main character, and I think she was pushed a little over the top too many times. It's like, okay, I get it. She's not anti-liberal. Like, the anti-liberal sweatshirt is just a little too much for me. Like, I think it's intentional to be like really over the top, but it just became too much, I think, at times. I wish it was a little bit more subtle and she was less like in your face about it, because then it would make it easier for the viewer to like get through these scenes that are just really annoying. You never know like what offensive thing she's gonna say next, and I still stand by it made it more entertaining, but only in the sense that it was like uncomfortable and like I don't know what to expect from this woman. I still think she was pushed a little bit too far, and if she was toned down and still had the same beliefs and like still said weird things every now and again, I think that would have been fine, but I think it was just a little too extreme. And I think it's so much so that people are not going to appreciate the actual horror movie that it is and appreciate the horror elements that are in it, because she's hard to look past at times and not everyone's going to be able to. This is also a little bit more unrealistic compared to Host. I feel like Host was realistic in the sense it's all filmed on Zoom, very much Unfriended like, and the slower pace kind of made sense. But at times in Dashcam, her friend would have her phone and be filming, which doesn't make sense in the plot. At times her phone is literally strapped to her head and someone's like, you gotta keep this, you know, don't say anything to anyone. It's like, can you not see the phone that's recording you right now on her head? Like, so some of it like didn't really make sense. Now, the worst part of this movie, I have to say, is the ending. I feel like it is highly disappointing. Again, I'm not doing spoilers in this video because it's really not necessary. Just watch it. It'll take an hour of your time, so it's really not that bad. It doesn't feel like a smart choice for this type of movie, and it's not very satisfying. And he was obviously going for more humor in this movie. Like, there's obviously like humor in it, especially in the ending, but to me, that kind of took away from the horror elements that we actually experienced throughout. So I wish it ended very, very differently. And it kind of does the entire movie a disservice once you realize the ending. I will say though, if you watch it, watch the end credits. I think that's a really clever thing to do, and it was pretty funny. So this movie has some of the worst reviews and ratings, and I feel kind of bad for Rob Savage because I think he made a real gem with Dashcam. It's just a lot of people don't feel the same, and they can't really overlook a lot of things going on in this movie, which is kind of sad because the horror in this is so good. I think he does horror so well, and I think a lot of people would agree with Host. Host, I think, was really effective for a lot of people. Obviously, it's voted the scariest movie of all time based on science. I don't agree, but it's scary, sure. I just think Dashcam is a complete roller coaster from start to finish. It is packed full of action the entire way through. Once you get past like 10-15 minutes, it's really not that bad. It gets going so fast. And honestly, it was a really, really fun movie to watch. I was so entertained throughout so much of this. My cat on a scratcher. Again, I don't want to hype it up too much because there's going to be people who are very upset with this movie. There's probably going to be people upset with me for liking this movie and giving it a positive review. I'm sorry about it. I'm not really. I really love it. And don't hate me if you watch it and you hate it. Like I said, it's only an hour of your time, so it's not that much of a commitment. And I will say the first 15 minutes are pretty much where she's at her worst. So if you can get through that, it's worth it for the horror elements that we get throughout the rest of the movie, because I genuinely found this movie horrifying and it definitely got me at times. And I will be rewatching it. If you've seen Dashcam, I would love to hear your thoughts. I know a lot of people are going to have thoughts. I know a lot of people are going to have opinions about this one, so just be respectful in the comments. Of course, we're dealing with a little bit of political opinions here, so please, keep it respectful in the comments. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on Dashcam if you checked it out, or if you're going to check it out, let me know down below. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.